Today we will be making the sunset butterfly inspired by the Tiger Clearwing Butterfly. You're going to need black, orange, yellow and white. I'm using Sculpey Primo, but you can also use other brands and it will be fine. I'll also be using my standard tools of an acrylic roller, an X-Acto knife, a needle tool and a flexible blade. I'm also using a pasta machine off screen. I find it much quicker to produce some really nice skinner blends using this rather than just an acrylic roller. So the first thing we're going to want to do is make a skinner blend between the orange, yellow and white. So roll those colours out on the thickest setting on your pasta machine and then cut the orange into an oblong and divide in half off the diagonal so there's sort of a lip on either side. Next, lay the orange that you've cut onto the yellow so that you get the right angle and sort of cut another angle on the other side so you're left with a triangular piece. We're going to layer this twice as well because we want quite a lot of this cane, so just lay the yellow that you've cut on top of another sheet of yellow and cut around it and then attach it to the orange piece. Finally, you only want a slither of white clay. This is just to give that yellow a bit of a glow when we put it onto the cane. So just again line it up against the block it's next to, which is the yellow, and just cut it so that it forms an entire rectangle with the other three colours. Double layer this and we're ready to go. Make sure all three colours are stuck together. I just push down the seams with my forefingers on both sides. Then we're going to put it through the pasta machine on the thickest setting first just to make sure everything's stuck together. Fold the blend from top to bottom and put the folded edge into the pasta machine. You'll need to do this about 20 to 30 times depending on the colours, some are stronger than others, so that you get a nice gradient from orange to yellow. Next we're going to make a tape out of this, so fold it so that it's about the same thickness all the way down the length and then put it through the pasta machine on an increasing thinness. This is about a 4 on my pasta machine. Lay the tape down, cut it into sections that are 3 centimeters wide and then stack on top. This will give you a gradient block from a dark orange to a yellow. When the clay is this thin, it's really easy to distort, so use your flexible blade just to scrape underneath the clay if it's sticking to the surface that you're working on. Once all the pieces are stacked on top of each other, you want to really give these a really good push together. This will get rid of all the gaps between the layers. At this point you can also start to shape it. So the yellow is going to be sort of the top outer part of the wing and the darker colour is going to sort of be the inner wing. So you're smushing it on the hut is probably how my local people would say it. You are really trying to sort of skew the blend that you've made. You don't want a sort of a straight line, so feel free to manipulate the clay however you want so that you get a bit of a wonky line and a wonky transition from the orange to the yellow. The rest of the orange is going to be used for the bottom wing. There's no gradient on that one. So then using a blunt tool, I'm using my needle tool as I always do, I'm just drawing on where the black is going to be put into the wing. You can see I've got a reference that I've drawn myself on the top left hand side. All those dark coloured in areas are going to end up black. Next is the scary bit, deciding where to cut into the wing to start inserting the black. I've chosen that long wavy line along the top of the bottom wing, and I'm using my needle tool here to shape the orange so that when I insert the black it will hopefully keep the shape of the cane. I have found that shaping the main part of the cane as opposed to the bit that you're putting into the cane is a better way to keep the shape. This goes for any kind of splodge shape that you're trying to make, as well as circles and waves. I've tried to taper this piece of black because, as you can see, it sort of goes from thick to thin to thick again, just using my fingers just to try and get that effect. When you're happy with the shape of it, you can push it back into your cane and then start working on the next bit. The thing I love about polymer clay, and I've probably said this in other videos, is it's a really forgiving medium. If you do something wrong or you're not happy with it, you can change the shape, you can change the colour, you can cut bits out, you can add bits in. It's a really nice medium to sculpt with. I really love it. So I'm working on the next wave now, which is the bit above the three big spots, one little spot on the bottom wing, and I'm just trying to shape it so there's sort of a heart shape on the end of it. This can be a little bit tricky, but do either draw yourself a reference. Mine is based on the Tiger Clearwing Butterfly, or draw something wonderfully fantastical and just follow your reference. So to get orange in between each of the circles of black on the bottom wing, I actually wrapped a black sausage in some thin orange polymer clay, and it is a bit of a cheat, I guess, because it gives the illusion that those black bits have always been surrounded by polymer clay, when actually you're just sort of making that illusion. The next step is to cut the veins. You can do this freehand, as I am on this one, or you can draw the veins on first and then follow the line. Sometimes that's easier, especially with ones that are a bit more complicated. Just make sure you're cutting where you want to. If you make an error, it's fine, because you can just stick it back together, give it a really good push, and then cut it again. You'll notice I don't just throw the pieces into a pile, I lay them out. This is because I have a very short memory and need a outline, if you like, on how to put the pieces back together. So next, roll out some black clay on a 3 setting on your pasta machine, put the veins into the spaces, and then put the wing back together. What you're trying not to do is to double layer the veins, so if there's already a bit that's got a piece of black vein on it, not to be confused with the spots, then you don't want to cover it up twice. I'm also putting black around the edge of the wing at this point because the edge has a quite thick black setting, but it goes inwards onto where the vein meets the edge of the wing, and you really want to capture that curve at this point, so I thought 2 birds, 1 stone, I'll do it at the same time. You can do it afterwards, just make sure you don't lose the shape of the lovely curves that you've cut. Next, roll out some black clay on a relatively thick setting at a 1 or a 2 on your pasta machine, and just try and create that black edge on the back of the bottom wing. So you really want to push it into those gaps using your needle tool, or perhaps even a toothpick if you don't have a needle tool, just so that you really get into those little niggly bits. Then you want to roll out some thin sausages of black and fill in those little niggly bits, because what will happen is if you leave those gaps open, when you reduce the cane, you will really distort the ends and they'll end up looking really funny or really flat. So the edging of that butterfly is quite thick with black, so I elected to have another layer all the way around the cane, just to give it some definition, but also to add extra black to the edge. Moving on to the top wing here, this has a more complicated pattern, so I'm using all the skills in my arsenal to try and insert the black clay. So here I'm using the handle of my X-Acto knife because it's obviously thicker than the needle tool and will create more of a curve. The needle tool is really useful for creating really small curves, so I will be using that for the sort of dots further up the wing. Once you've got the curve where you want it to be, you want to add the black so that you've got that lovely definition that's on the bottom of the top wing. So here I've used a mixture of techniques to get the dot in, by stabbing the cane with my needle tool to create the initial hole, then cutting into it, like slicing completely in half, making the hole bigger and putting the black in. It's a little complicated to explain, but I hope that I am showing you most of the techniques that I used in this tutorial, and obviously you can ask me anything in the comments. So here you can see I'm trying to create the sort of loop that goes into the top wing in the sort of front side of it, I guess. I've used a long blade to create the initial bit going into the middle of the cane, and then used my needle tool to create the circular area, just inserting a sausage of black before I inserted a sheet, relatively thick sheet of black clay into there, leading to the outer tip. So next I'm going to fill the sort of wonky 7 that I've put into my cane by using fat sausages of black, thin sausages, flat sausages, whatever shapes I can sort of make with my fingers to try and create the shape on the top wing. One thing that I want to stress with this particular butterfly is don't be afraid of cutting into the cane. It's perfectly acceptable. You can put the cane back together again. Just be mindful of where your pieces go. I mean, it's basically like a big sticky puzzle. So I think I finally got to a point where I've had enough of the spots. So I'm just going to draw on the veins on the top wing. They're a little bit more complicated than the bottom wing in that they don't go all the way through the butterfly. I am literally just putting them to the sort of the C shape. So I'm just cutting in with my flexible blade and only part way into the cane and just inserting that thin sheet of black clay. It's on a 3 setting on my pasta machine and curving it round because again this top wing has black on the back of the wing. If cutting into the cane this way isn't your cup of tea and you'd rather cut all the way through, please go ahead, just put it back really carefully together, lining up the front and the back, and it will look fine. Okay, so essentially we're going to do what we did on the bottom wing to keep the lovely curved edges of the sections of the wing by filling them in with black. I'm using the sausage technique on this one. I find it much easier to control where the clay is going to go using this technique, plus you're really going to fill in all the spaces around where you want to fill in, so there's not going to be any gaps which could potentially distort the cane when you're reducing it. So I think it's a perfect technique. So you really want to build up that corner with black. As you can see, I'm just adding layer upon layer of little sausages of black. This just sort of gives it that sort of black tip on top of the pale yellow. Next, I've rolled out some black clay on a relatively thick setting. I think this is a 2. And then I'm just wrapping the entire cane in that. The butterfly does sort of have a black edge all the way around the tiger wing, so I tried to imitate that using this clay. Once you're happy with the canes, take a good look at them and see if you're happy. Really push the layers together so that there's no air bubbles. I decided that the bottom wing needed an extra layer of black, so I rolled out some black on a thick setting on my pasta machine, would have been a 1, and just added that to the edge just to increase the thickness of the black on the bottom wing. And that is the Sunset Butterfly tutorial, obviously inspired by the Tiger Clearwing Butterfly. I really hope you enjoyed making this alongside me. Thank you so much for watching and being on this journey with me, and I will catch you in the next video. Until then, happy claying!